You ever make a commitment to something and then immediately regret it? Like when you say you'll go out with friends, but all you really want to do is stay pantsless indoors and keep binging CBR videos? We feel that way all the time, and surprisingly, even the actors in the biggest franchise in the world feel that way too. In the MCU, most actors enjoy being part of the instant money-making machine, but there have been a few whose characters were mishandled so poorly, the actors regretted being in the MCU altogether. Let's take a look at a few of them right now. Scarlett Johansson. Out of the two major deaths in Avengers Endgame, it was Black Widow's untimely demise that was perhaps the most surprising, just because it came out of the middle of the movie rather than the end. Given the concept of time travel and the fact that her solo movie was in production, we expected her death to be undone by the time the credits rolled, but we all know how that turned out. Even though she knew she would be playing the character again in the future movie, Black Widow's death hit Scarlett Johansson extremely hard. She was crushed while filming Natasha's final scene on Vormir, and was quoted in saying how overwhelmingly sad she felt about it. We know we felt the same way. Black Widow always felt like one of the most undeserved Avengers despite being one of the original 6. And just when we were getting excited about the prospect of a solo movie, Endgame goes and kills her off. But of course, above all else, we blame Nebula for not putting 2 and 2 together, and realizing the Soul Stone required a sacrifice after already seeing Thanos return without Gamora. Maybe ScarJo would have never been put in that position if Nebula was more forthcoming with information, huh? Natalie Portman. We may have been sad that Jane Foster and Thor broke up by the time Thor Ragnarok hit the scene, but seeing Thor in Avengers Endgame, we're thinking that Jane may have dodged a bullet there. But although Natalie Portman didn't get the call to return for the threequel, she didn't seem that upset by the decision, especially after some behind-the-scenes drama occurred while filming Thor: The Dark World. Originally, Patty Jenkins was set to direct the second Thor adventure, taking over the reins from Kenneth Branagh. Though due to some drama, she left the project due to creative differences, which is the universal Hollywood slogan for "we actually hated each other." Patty Jenkins would then switch sides and direct Wonder Woman, while Alan Taylor was brought on for Thor: The Dark World, and unfortunately, we all know how that turned out, with Thor: The Dark World giving us a truly dark world with one of the worst MCU films ever. Portman was really upset by this, having been expected to be in Thor: The Dark World specifically because of Patty Jenkins. Although Jenkins left, Portman couldn't do anything about it, and she was under contract to appear in the sequel, so she appeared more out of obligation rather than love in the material. Idris Elba. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt personally victimized by Thor: The Dark World. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Idris Elba, is that you in the back? We completely get it. The movie was rough, even for someone as great of an actor as you are. People know Idris Elba as a rising star, and for good reason. He's got charisma and talent up the wazoo, and he's a part of almost every single major franchise in Hollywood. Marvel, Star Trek, DC, Fast and Furious. Heck, it's only a matter of time now before there's a lightsaber in his hand. He's a highly in-demand actor who keeps popping up everywhere, so why did Thor: The Dark World do him so dirty? By the sounds of it, it seems like his work in the MCU has been his least favorite franchise to be a part of. Before Taika Waititi completely reinvigorated the Thor franchise, he was quoted saying that the first 2 Thor movies were work and not fun, even going as far as telling his agent that Thor: The Dark World felt like torture. Although we're sad Heimdall got turned into a shish kebab by Thanos, we're happy Idris Elba got to move on to other projects he wanted to pursue. Jeremy Renner. For the longest time, Hawkeye was the butt of everyone's jokes. What, this guy with like 15 arrows deserved to stand alongside Earth's mightiest heroes? But over time, we all came around to the Archer and his unique set of skills, with him being a vital cornerstone of the MCU. Even though Hawkeye is more beloved nowadays, let's not forget that in the beginning, he didn't really contribute all that much, and no one was more upset than the actor who played the character, Jeremy Renner. When he signed up for the role, he was excited to get in this character's headspace and find out what makes him tick. But he was surprised to find his first big outing as Hawkeye resulted in him being mind-controlled zombie for most of the movie. It was such a disappointing experience that Renner was even encouraging Marvel to kill off his character so he wouldn't have to keep playing Hawkeye. Can you imagine an MCU without Hawkeye now? Who else would stand around and make witty, sarcastic quips? Okay, don't answer that. Luckily, things are much better now, and Renner seems much happier in where they took the character. Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow has raised quite a few eyebrows in recent times, with her seemingly forgetting exactly which Marvel movie she's been a part of and who she starred with. She totally forgot she was in Spider-Man: Homecoming while talking to Jon Favreau, and Kevin Feige revealed that she was confused why Samuel L. Jackson was attending Tony Stark's funeral, forgetting that he played Nick Fury. Is her memory so bad she's trying to block out all the pain of being in the MCU? Nah, that's probably not it, but it does highlight just how much energy she's devoted to the MCU nowadays. When Iron Man 3 was released, she admitted in an interview that she was mostly done with acting and didn't like it much anymore, with her not even knowing what Marvel movie she was contracted to be in, which gives a pretty good sense of her mindset regarding Marvel. It's why it was so surprising to see her pop up at the end of Spider-Man: Homecoming, as it was widely expected that she was completely done with the franchise, and with always having to babysit Tony Stark. Although Paltrow is perhaps perfect for playing Pepper Potts, being a part of a massive franchise just doesn't seem to interest her anymore. Mickey Rourke. Back in the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, before it completely took over the world, the MCU was notorious for having lackluster villains for our heroes to punch and beat up. This unfortunate trend probably started with Mickey Rourke's Iron Man 2 villain, Whiplash. Although he was played by an Oscar-nominated actor, he just didn't leave much of an impression as the big bad of Tony Stark's second solo adventure. And that's not really Mickey Rourke's fault, who apparently shot a lot of scenes as Whiplash that ultimately got cut out of the final product in order to keep Whiplash as a simple, straightforward bad guy. This would be disappointing for any actor, so it's understandable why Rourke was quoted as saying he isn't a Marvel fan anymore. Iron Man 2 isn't high on a lot of people's favorite Marvel movies, but now we can't help but wonder how different it would have been if Mickey Rourke was able to flesh out his character in the way he wanted to. What does anyone even remember about Whiplash now? We know he wanted his bird, and he had electric whips, but that's about it. Yeah, we have a feeling we won't see Rourke in another MCU film anytime soon. Edward Norton. You think that in one of 14 million different possible futures that Doctor Strange saw in Avengers: Infinity War, at least one of them had Ed Norton as Bruce Banner instead of Mark Ruffalo? Today, it's almost impossible to imagine anyone else as Hulk, but if Norton and Marvel didn't butt heads so much during the production of 2008's The Incredible Hulk, Norton might still be a part of the franchise to this day. Ed Norton is a high-caliber actor who, after joining the superhero film, went about making changes to the script himself after being unhappy with the story and the dialogue. When your lead actor suddenly takes over writing duty for your movie, then it's pretty clear there might be a problem. It's still unclear exactly what happened when it came down to recasting Norton with Ruffalo for the Avengers, but it's pretty clear that Marvel and Norton did not see eye to eye with how they wanted the character represented. In the last few years, Norton has been more open with talking about his role in the MCU, seemingly happy he isn't part of it anymore. He said, "I think you can sort of do anything once, but if you do it too many times, it can become a suit that's hard to take off." Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving is one of those actors who keeps popping up in your favorite geeky franchises like Lord of the Rings and The Matrix. But Marvel fans know him as the villainous Red Skull, Captain America's greatest enemy. We're not sure why he's called the Red Skull though. That's one mystery we can't seem to solve. Anyway, the man behind the Red Skull, Hugo Weaving, did an admirable job playing the World War II baddie. And given the way he went out in Captain America: The First Avenger, there were many who were suspecting he would come back. Given that he dissolved while holding the Tesseract, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to think he could pop back up in a future movie. Heck, Bucky fell out of a train and then down a cliff, but he still showed up with a new bionic arm. But Hugo Weaving made it clear that he had no intention to return to the role. He said the only reason he would return would be because he was contractually obligated, which is why the role was recast for Avengers: Endgame. Christopher Eccleston. We're pretty sure the conversation to cast Christopher Eccleston as the big bad Malachite the Accursed in Thor: The Dark World went something like this. Eccleston asked if the role would require a lot of makeup. Then Marvel executives averted their eyes and shuffled their feet while saying, sure? Okay, maybe not exactly like that, but hearing Eccleston talk about his role in one of the MCU's least liked films, it does sound like Marvel wasn't completely honest with Eccleston. He said in the past that Marvel neglected to tell him the heavy makeup was required to turn Eccleston into a dark elf, with him sitting in a chair anywhere between 6 to 8 hours a day to get his look right, which is a total waste of time for such a flat and pointless character. The whole experience was an unpleasant one for Eccleston, which is unfortunate as he had the potential to be a really strong villain and presence in the MCU. Terrence Howard. Probably the biggest example of a star exiting the MCU over questionable reasons, Terrence Howard was the original War Machine, aka James Rhodes, back in 2008, in the first Iron Man movie, but everyone knows he didn't stick around too long. For all future installments, the part of Rhodes was played by Don Cheadle, the guy who wanted to strangle baby Thanos in his crib, that guy. In the first Iron Man, Howard's version of Rhodes looks like a prototype suit, and said, "Next time, baby." But now that line is laughable with everything that happened after. Apparently, the reason that Howard didn't return for the sequel boils down to cold hard cash. There are conflicting reports depending on who you talk to, but Howard says that he signed a standard 3-picture deal to be in Iron Man and its sequels. But when the time came for Iron Man 2, he was offered $1 million instead of the $8 million that he was promised. Now this seems like a shrewd move, but Entertainment Weekly reports that Marvel wasn't happy with Howard's performance and wanted to cut down his storyline, hence the smaller paycheck. After watching both Howard and Cheadle play Rhodes, we agree Cheadle is the better choice. Well, that's our list of Marvel actors who regretted being in the MCU. Idris Elba was particularly interesting to us, but what about you? What's your favorite entry? Was there any that we may have missed? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and while you're here, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more awesome Marvel content. Thanks for watching.